Hello, students. This session of mine is on output questions, right? Output questions that you get in your CBSE board exams, right? For class 12th, as well as for class 11th. 11th also, these questions are relevant because you have all these things in your syllabus. Right? So, the first type of questions that I'm going to take up today is our evaluation questions, right? Our evaluation questions. Now, evaluation of expressions. Now, what type of expressions are we going to evaluate? Arithmetic expressions, logical expressions, right? So we'll see how to evaluate these expressions because definitely in your boards, you're going to get question on this. Then next comes your um, module based output questions. Mostly, I mean, I would be taking up random functions, right? The functions of random module. So that's random, then it's rand int, and then it's rand range. So definitely you get one question out of, I mean, modules. One you'd get most probably from random, one you get from statistics, right? So in statistics, you need to know what mode functions, what median function does, and what median does. Yeah, mode median. Now, apart from these, then we have function-based output questions. We have function-based output questions. Right. Now, in function-based output questions, you have string-based questions. You have list-based questions, or you have normal, integer, float based questions, and then you have questions based on default parameters, use of global keyword, etc. Right? And then in these function-based questions, you also see what happens when a string is passed, when a list is passed, or even a dictionary, which I've missed out here, or dictionary is passed. Right? Now, apart from these, then you have questions, um, output questions on all the built-in functions. You have to be very, very thorough with respect to all the built-in functions. First of all, what a particular built-in function is meant for, its task, its utility. Okay. Then the next important thing about the function is what is it returning? And then what all arguments are being used or passed when calling that function. And out of these arguments, which are optional, which all are optional, and which all are mandatory. So you should know all these points, and only then would you be able to use built-in functions and give correct evaluation of output questions of built-in functions, right? So these are few instances of output questions that I would be catering today in this class, right? So now I'll just take up a worksheet, okay? And yeah, yeah. So this is the worksheet that I will be taking up today. So like I told you all, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to take up evaluation questions. Now you're seeing here, these are all what? These are all arithmetic evaluation questions, right? So we'll see how to handle these. And then here we are seeing this is a logical question, expression question, right? So I'll just go through this concept. Just give me a second. Yeah. Just wipe this off. See, this is really, really important for you all to understand. You only will be able to solve these questions if you know what is the precedence of the operator. And what do we mean by precedence of operator? We mean which operator to be used first or later in an expression. I mean, you might have an expression probably with just one operator. So there's no confusion. But what if I have an expression which has multiple operators in it? Now the question arises which one to evaluate first or to start evaluation from which direction. So that all needs to be understood first place, right? So now we see that. I mean, we have mathematical operators, right? We have, okay, unary operators. Yeah. So you're seeing the first one, the parenthesis. Parenthesis has highest, okay? Parenthesis has the highest precedence. What does that mean? If in any expression, right, you have parenthesis that changes or handles, right? In what sequence the evaluation has to happen. Like it changes the entire, rule set that you have understood or followed. So first of all, parenthesis is to be taken care of. Second highest precedence is of exponentiation, right? This is raised to the power. Then C, unary plus and unary minus. It means positive and negative. So if in any expression, okay, you have these signs, they have to be evaluated first, right? Now, I'll just give an example. Say I have -3 plus 2. So here what is going to happen? First, this negative is going to be evaluated. So that makes it a -3 and then the evaluation takes place. It's not that you're going to do 3 plus 2 first and then place a negative sign. Then no, first you're going to evaluate this, the unary negative, and then you'd go on to the binary plus or minus whatever you have. Okay, so you have to take care of this. Then I next move on to my arithmetic operators, right? So multiplication, integer division, floor division, modulus, they have a precedence over addition and subtraction. Okay. So, and in that also you're seeing, see, I'm seeing here that multiplication, integer division, floor division, and modulus, they are all placed at same level. Now, what if in an expression I have, say, this is my expression, I have 3 multiplied by 2, okay, and it's divided by, say it's 3 multiplied by 4, I do divide by 2. Okay. So now what am I going to evaluate first? The evaluation is going to start from left to right anytime. Okay. So left to right means I'll start from here. So what is going to be evaluated first? Okay. First, 3 into 4, 12, right? And 12 divided by 2. So it's going to be 6.0. Got it? So it's left to right. In an expression, whichever occurs first is evaluated. Okay. Likewise, I'm seeing plus and minus at same level here also. Now what if in an expression I have both plus and minus, then first I start from left. Left associativity is taken over. In an expression, if I have, now it's very clear that precedence of multiplication is over precedence of addition. So say I have an example, 3 into 4 plus 2. Now I know that this is going to be evaluated first and whatever result is going to be added to 2. Okay. So next I move on to logical operators. Now the three logical operators are not and or. Now you see the highest precedence is of not. Okay. And then is of and then is of or. And again it moves from left to right as the arithmetic operators. Right. Here I have to add one thing in this raised to the power or exponential. Here what happens is that I'll just give an example and explain. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, now see, suppose I have an expression 3 raised to the power 2 raised to the power 2. So now here the associativity is from right to left. So now what am I going to do? I'll first evaluate this. So ultimately it comes down to 3 raised to the power 4. And don't do it other way around. It's not going to be 3 raised to the power 9 raised to the power 2. No, it's going to be 3 raised to the power 4. Got it? So these are few concepts of, using precedence, okay, rule or chart whenever you are solving a question wherein you are evaluating an expression that's, yeah. So now I take up the questions, okay? So let's take up this here. Now tell me, what are we going to do here? First of all, highest precedence is of this, right? First, this is going to be evaluated and then this. I get the result, okay? I get some value, 10 minus, this gives me some value, okay? Say it is x. Then I do what? I perform this. I get a value, right? Say that value is y. It's going to be y.0, always remember, right? And then this becomes the result. See, always remember in Python, okay, this is integer division. Integer division means even if you're dividing 4 by 2, you won't get 2, you'll get 2.0. But if I write 4 row division 2, I'll get 2. So this has to be understood, okay? Yeah. Now I take up the next question. In this, there's this print statement with first element being 3 plus 3.00 and this being 3 raised to the power 3.0. It's very simple. Here, this results into 6.00 and this results into 3 raised to power 3 means 27.0. Okay. Now I take up this and these are same questions. I take up this. Now, very simple. What is going to be evaluated first? This. Okay. This is evaluated first. And after this, what? Okay. This, then whatever the result is flow divided by 5. And we see that this entire thing gives us 0 0.0. Okay. So the result becomes 6 plus 0.0 plus 8. So the answer becomes 14.0. Okay. See, the thing is that you need to very clearly understand which ones to be evaluated first, which ones to be evaluated later. So here again, if you see in this question, very clearly we understand that, okay, in this question, not to please get confused, here, raised to the power, okay, after raised to the power, 5, we do, so it's like something 4 raised to power 2 is 16, right? 5 integer division 16, 0 point something, right? So it gives 0. And 5 row division 0 in all gives 0. That's why I'm getting the 0 here. And then I add it and it comes 14.0. Remember, 14 and 14.0 are two different answers, right? You cannot write 14 and expect it to be correct. It has to be 14.0. Always remember. If this also was safe row division, then you would just get a 0 and not 0.0 and the answer would have been 14, not could have been, it would have been. Now I take up the other question, which is a logical question, right? So here I have relational operations, which are comparing numbers. And now 19 is less than 11. Now see, sorry, first of all, there's a not here. The first thing that's going to be evaluated is 75 is greater than 30, correct? True. So not true becomes what? False. So the first thing that I get is false, right? Write it here. Yeah, first thing I get here is false. Now then, what is going to be evaluated next? And, okay, so this one is what? Less than 11. This is false. This one is true. So false and true give me what? False. And or, so the result is false. Getting it? So this is how you evaluate logical expression. Always remember, not is evaluated first, then and then or. If in an expression you have, say, two ands, okay, this one's also and, this one's also and. So then you're going to start from left and you'll go to right. This is how you evaluate. Okay. Now I take up the next question. How is this going to be evaluated now? How is this going to be evaluated? First, 4 raised to the power 3, row division 84, and then this is going to be evaluated. This is going to be 2.0. Okay, so what are you going to get here? The answer is going to be, just check it, it's going to be 2.0. Okay, and then if we evaluate this question, again 3 raised to the power 2. Okay, and then modulus 14. Okay, and then multiplied by 4 and you get 20. Getting it? So yeah, next I move on to, yeah, random number questions. Now, so see, for this you all have to make ample amount of practice. Only then would you be able to solve these questions, right? To be really, really particular about the precedence. And I'll give you all few more questions on these. You solve them for yourself and you'll get the answer. It's very important. You definitely get a question from either of these or at times both as well. Now I take up random number questions. Now before that, I'll just explain very briefly, though you all know, but still I'll just very briefly explain. Okay. Yeah. So functions to do with random module. So you need to understand what is rand range function. You need to understand what is rand int function and random function. All these functions fall into which module? They all fall into random module. Okay. Now, rand range and rand int are used to generate a random number. Okay, within a range. Within a range. And random does what? It generates random number between 0 and 1, in which 1 is not inclusive. So basically, it is used to generate floating point random numbers. Okay. Random numbers. Now, both of these are used to generate a random number within a given range. So what's the difference between the two? Very important to understand the difference because the output questions at times use rand range, at times use rand int. So you should be knowing, okay, the difference between the two and how to handle them when you get them in an output question. So first of all, I take rand range, okay, and say m and n are the limits. And for rand int, say m and n are the limits, right? So now this gives you a random number between m and n minus 1. And this would give you a random number between m and n, correct? So this concept has to be utilized when you're working with random number questions. Again, I move back to my question paper. Okay. So now I take up the questions on random numbers. Okay. So now just focus on this question, right? Yeah. So the very first line obviously has to be what? Import random, because we need to import the random module, right? And then we have this list cards. And like, the index starts from 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now here it's all about index. Okay. What all index are you getting to give an appropriate output? Right. So we need to keep an eye on what index are you getting out of any manipulation done here in the loop, without loop, using randint, using rand range, whatever. The focus has to be on which index am I reaching to, right? Okay. Now, my next line is for I in range 2. And I know how range works. If it's range 2, right? it gives me values what? 0 and 1. 1 less than what you have here, right? So now what does that mean? That I traverses on 0 and 1. And what does it mean? When I is traversing on 0 and 1 means this iteration is going to happen how many times? 2 times. So the very first thing is that you cannot have any output which goes beyond 2 iterations, right? In this case, I see that all the outputs have 2 iterations only. So that point has to be considered, right? Okay. Then next I come on this line. Okay, I'll just clear it off so that it's easy to understand. Yeah. Now just look at this. First of all, okay, I won't be repeating what end hash is doing. You all know it, but still, okay. So end hash, okay, I'll just tell you all. What happens is that a print statement, right, terminates with a new line. And what does it mean? Say in a program, I have multiple prints, right? I have this print, again, I have a print. So after this print, automatically this print is going to start from new line. But in cases I want that whatever's been printed here, immediately after that, okay, using some end, using any end character, it could be just a normal space as well. I want this print to be continued in this line only and not in a new line. So for that, I use end. Okay, so end is used so as to have, now what's going to happen, this for is going to iterate 2 times, so this print is going to happen how many times? 2 times. But I want that each time the print is happening, it has to happen in the same line. So what I say, instead of end equals to new line, which is default, I make it hash. Means as soon as the first iteration print happens, when the next iteration print happens, you, instead of new line, you just have a hash and the second iteration print is printed. So it happens like this. So this is about end, okay, having an end with the print. Now, okay, we had seen how rand int works. So now here I have 1. Okay, so for the first iteration, value of I is what? Value of I is 0. So this goes 0 plus 2, this. Okay, so here rand int 1 comma 2 gives me what? 1 comma 2, right? If it would have been rand range, I would just get 1. But because it's rand int, this is upper, this is lower, this is upper, 1 is lower, 2 is upper. So in randint, I get upper as well as lower values also in the sequence, and that's why I'm getting 1 comma 2 here, right? Okay. Now, for the second iteration, I becomes what? I becomes 1. Okay. So this big value becomes what for second iteration? 1 comma I is what? 1. So this becomes 3. So what do I get? I get 1 comma 2 comma 3. And you know what? So the thing is that I'm getting values 1 comma 2, I'm getting values 1 comma 2 comma 3. Now I'll again clean it once again for you to understand better. So see, I'm getting 1 comma 2, I'm getting 1 comma 2 comma 3 out of this in both the iterations. And what is this basically? It is index because it is in square brackets of cards. So what does it mean? I'm printing cards, value from cards, and the index is coming out of this statement, right? So now what I see is that the index, possible index are 1, 2, and 3. So I cannot have values beyond 1, 2, and 3, means I can only have values 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So now what should be the value? Anytime heart cannot be part. Okay. So these two are discarded. Then comes spade and diamond, and comes diamond and club. So see one more thing. It can be 1, 2. Okay, it can be 1, 2, 3. It cannot go in the reverse order. So this one also is wrong and this one's the correct one. Okay. So now I take up the next example. Now again, here I have this line, not a big deal. You know, I have a list. Now again, see, I'm getting two variables here, lower and upper. Again, here rand int is being used, right? So rand int 2 comma 2 means what value am I getting here? 2. And here it is 2 comma 3. So what value am I getting here? 2 3, right? So I'm getting values for lower, it's going to be 2, for upper it's going to be 2 comma 3. Now see, it could be any of these. Here it's only one value, so not a, I mean, there's no other option. But here it's 2 comma 3, so it's any of these two random, I mean, any random number out of these two. Okay, so now, sorry, yeah, so here it's 2 and here it's, so lower is 2 and upper is 2 comma 3. Now here what am I doing? K in range lower comma upper. So you see here, lower to is always going to be 2. Upper can be what? Upper can be 2, upper can be 3, either. Here it's upper plus 1. So it can be, there can be two options. One is for k in range 2 comma upper plus 1 means what? 3. Okay, 2 comma 3. And because upper can be what? Upper can be 2, upper can be 3, so it can be 2 comma 3 or 2 comma 4. So k first of all will have how many iterations? If it is 2 comma 3, it'll just have 2. If it's range 2 comma 3, so it's going to be one iteration. If it is 2 comma 4, it's going to be 2 3, two iterations, right? So let's see the output. Here it's saying, so k again is being used here as an index. Fine. So what all values can it take? 2 3 4. And what is 2 3 4? It's this 4 pe jayega nahi, because it's range, right? So the value here will be 2, the value here will be 2 3. So 0 1 2 3, the value can only be 50 70. So this would be the output. Getting it all? Yeah. So very simple it is, just for you all to understand what all points have I taken care of here. First of all, I'm seeing what all values upper and lower can have. Okay, and through this I get it can have 2, and through this I get it can have 2 3. Next I have to check what all values can k have. Okay, and that's going to depend on this range, right? So k can have, lower is always 2, upper is this, so it can be 2 3 and 2 4. So 2 3 means only 2, 2 4 means 2 3. So k can take values 2 and 3 only, right? K can have these two values. So it means the index which can be, and what am I printing? I'm printing LK, and K is being used here as index of L. So, and the only two allowed in index or indices are 2, 3, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So any output which has value having these two indices can be the possible outputs. Okay. So here, this is the output. See, so first of all, you need to ensure the number of iterations which are going to happen, because see here you're seeing here there's only one iteration, here there's two iteration, here there's three iteration, here there's four iteration. So the number of iterations also matter, and beyond that the index where the value is falling out to be, which is being used to print. Okay, so you have to take care of it. Now I move on to this question again. See, always read the questions very, very carefully. What happens is that we always presume that the question says to check out for possible outputs. But just see here. Here the question is, which will never be obtained. You're getting it? So just be very, very careful when you're reading the questions, right? Now, again, not a big deal, import random. Here now see, before this, we were using rand int in all the questions, right? Here I'm using rand range. Very, very important to differentiate in a question, right? Now, rand range 10 gives me what? It gives me a random number between 0 to 9, right? And here, if it's 5, it gives me between 0 to 4. But if you just see the whole term, here it's plus 1, here it's multiplied by 10. So shuffle would have what value? Shuffle would have, shuffle would have Just give me a second. Now, see if you just look out at this question again, right? Yeah. So, this line, obviously. Now, see, one thing to be noted in this question is which of the following output will never be obtained? Now, see, don't presume that the question is always going to ask what will be the possible outputs. The question can even be what output will never be obtained. So, be very, very observant, very much, alert about what's being asked in the question. Okay. So, now in this question, see, rand range, okay, is being used, not rand int. Okay, and you know the difference between rand range and rand int. Now, rand range 10 will give you value from 0 till 9. Okay, and rand range 5 is going to give you values from 0 till 4. Now, if you just look at the whole statement, here you have plus 1, here you have 10 multiplied by this value. So, what values would you get in shuffle? The values would be 1 till 10. And what values would you get in draw? You would get 0 till 40. So now one thing is clear, what values are shuffle and draw going to have in them. It could be any number between 1 to 10, any number between 0 till 40. And now what is being printed? Just look here, there's no loop here. There are just simple two print statements, and each print statement to be separated by hash here again. So not that this is going to be printed in a new line. After this print, the print of this is going to happen after a hash and not after a new line. Okay, again I'm repeating this now. So just look at what's been printed. So shuffle and value of shuffle, draw and value of draw. I know what all values shuffle can have. Shuffle can have value, any value from 1 till 10. Draw can have any value from 0 till 40. So if I see which will never be obtained, obviously shuffle can never have value 11 and draw can never have value 50. So the possible output is going to be, which is not going to be, is this, right? So now I hope it's clear to all. I take up the next question here again. Okay. Given option is expected. So import, this is the list. Now 2, now just see the k in range 2 comma 0. Okay, it means start is 2, stop is 0, and in steps of minus 1 means reverse. So 2 comma 1 comma 0, 0 will not take because 1 less. So what all values are k going to take? It's going to take 2 comma 1. So I mean, what does it mean? It means k is going to take these two values and the iteration is going to happen 2 times, right? It's going to happen 2 times. And now just look at this. Again, I have what? Rand range k. And rand range k means it can have either 2 or 1. If it has 2, what is going to be the possible value? 0 comma 1. And if it is 1, what is going to be the possible value? 0. So R can have values 0, 1 or 0, 1 or 0. Okay. So what does it mean? It can have values from, and see, remember, it's going to be in reverse order always. Like if this iteration, it's going to be 2 comma 0, 2 comma 1, right? And then it can be either, yeah, here. So now just see, what am I printing? I'm printing again, signal is a list. R can have value 0 comma 1. Okay, and so which is going to be the possible output? Anywhere where you have a green, anytime, cannot happen, and the possible output is yellow and red. Fine, you can only have these two values, and this is why this is the correct output, right? You can never have green, you can only have 0, 1. Now I move on to the next question. Yeah. Now, again, in this question, possible outputs, this is okay. This is the list, okay. And now, again, for I in range 1, comma 2 means what? How many iterations? One time. The loop is going to iterate only one time, okay. And what all values I is going to have? I is going to have value 1. It's always going to be 1, right? So, now I'll see what all values f and s get. Now, here randant is going to take value. I'll just wipe this off. 1 comma 3. 1 comma 3 means what? 1, 2, 3. And here it is I plus 1. I is what? I is 1. So here it's going to be 2 comma 4. And what does that mean? 2, 3, 4. So f can have any value out of these and s can have any values out of these. So if I just come here, what all values can, yeah, 1, 2, 3 for f. 1, 2, 3 means f has this, f has this, f has this. S is 2, 3, 4. So S, S, and S, 2, 3, 4, right? Now, what has been printed? I take F and S as indices, and now here, see, now here it is SEP. So you need to understand the difference between end and SEP in print. SEP means what? You're seeing here there are multiple values to be printed in the print statement. What characters going to be, or what string do you want to be used, okay, when you are printing this, the separator between these two values? So here it said that the separator has to be colon, okay. So SEP is used to separate multiple values when are being printed using print, right? So that's one concept, but here our focus needs to shift back to what all is going to be printed, right? So now see, so the allowable values are SF can have what all values? SF can have pencil, eraser, bag, and SS can have values eraser, bag, book. So the common values are what? The common values are you have pencil, okay, and you have book. And remember one thing, iteration can only happen once. So सबसे पहले what's going to happen? These two get discarded. Why these two get discarded? Because I mean you cannot have two iterations. I mean this print statement will be iterated only once, right? So these two anytime are discarded. Fine. So now my possible outputs are what? I can have, in place of f I can have pencil, in place of f of, I mean for f value I can have bag as well. So correct, pencil and bag are correct here. And for s I can have book, yes. I can have eraser, yes. So I see that these two values are the correct values. Is this clear? Is it clear to you all? So these are few questions on random modules. And you would see that if I just tell you in nutshell, the points to be noted is, first of all, you need to know how to use range function. You need to know how rand range works. You need to know how rand int works. And you'll very well be able to do these questions in one concept of end and sep. Okay. So this is about random module questions, and we'll practice even more questions on these later on. Yeah. Okay. Now we take up our next session. I move on to the next question. Now this is of slice type. Now, what is happening here? This, see, for slicing, you all know how slicing works. In slicing, you have start, you have stop, and you have step. Okay. Say this is for a string. What does it mean? You are extracting a string, substring from a string, or you're extracting a list from a sublist from a list. It's like that. From where you start, okay, till where you go. So you always go one less. And this gives you steps or hops in which you go from start to step. Okay. So there are various combinations of start, stop, step accordingly. you get your extractions from your string, list, or whatever you're working upon. Yeah. Now this means what? It starts from -3. Always remember, if it is this -1, it means reverse. Whatever it is in reverse order. -2 means reverse in hops of 2. You start from the last element and then every second element you print. If it's a -3 here means again you start from the back and every third element you print. But here, what does it say? Start from -3. Okay. So from -3, you go back. So -3 is what? -1, -2, -3. So I start from here and then I move on backwards. So I get what? What am I going to get? First of all, my output is going to be I, S, and F. Okay. This is going to be my output. How is it so? -1, -2, -3, L, then -1, -2, -3. Okay, then capital S, and then 1, 2, 3, F. This is how it is going to happen. So the thing is, you start from 0, the last element, then the third in reverse, and then the third. Here we are not starting from 0 because my start is given -3, and -3 is where? -1, -2, -3. You start from here. Okay, and this is the answer. Now, likewise, I take this question. Here, what is happening? I'm starting from -6. Okay, I am starting from -6 and I am going simply in reverse order from -6. Okay, till the end. So, what am I going to get? It's going to be -6 means -1, -2, -3, -1. This is -6, and then all from here till here in reverse order. So which is the correct answer? This is the correct answer. Okay. Yeah. Now again, I take up this question. It's again a slicing question. Now here you've got a string. Okay? Here you've got a string. And what are you going to do here is my str, this and this. What does this mean? This means your start is not given, so it is by default 0. And it goes from 0 till 3. Okay, so 0 to 3 is what? 0, 1, 2, 3. So I get what? This. Okay, so my first extraction is this. And I concatenate it with a hash. So miss and then hash. And then after that, -5 to end. -5 to end means what? -1, -2, -1, -2, -3, minus S. So it starts from here till end because there's no end given here. So you see my correct option is this. This is 0 to 4 and this is from -5 till end. Okay, and separate concatenated with the hash. Okay, now I take up next question. Next question is this. See, in your examination, you definitely get a question on split as well as partition. Like I earlier told you, whenever you have a question, okay, on built-in functions, you need to be very, very clear. How does it work? Okay, what does it return? And what all arguments does it take? And what if I give no argument or if I give an argument or whatsoever? So now I just take up this question. Split does what? Split is used to split a string into a list. Okay, simply its task is to convert a string to a list. Okay, so if I have a string and I give a split character, okay, if I give a split character, it's going to do what? It's going to convert that string into a list and split the string wherever, okay, the split characters there in the string. So here I see there's only one because here I'm giving a space. It's not empty, remember, it's a space and I see only space here. So what is going to happen? My list is going to be what? G20 comma this entire thing. Okay, this entire thing. And then next, so my list has two elements, G20 and presidency 2023. Okay. And after that, what? After that, the next line does what? Simply displays it in reverse order. Okay. Starting from up. See, I told you all now. Here, minus this line is doing what? Again, it's slicing L. I have a list now. I have a list. Now, this is my list. See, my list is G20, comma, presidency. Okay. And now what am I doing? I'm printing reverse. A minus 2 means what? Extracting this in reverse order of minus 2. Minus 2 means what? Hops of 2 in reverse order. So the first element is going to be taken. This is going to be skipped and there's nothing beyond it. So what is going to be the output? The output is going to be this one here. And always remember, why not this and why this? Because split returns a list. Always remember. And then you're slicing a list. So you very, very much need to know what a particular function is returning. Otherwise, you might probably even end up picking up this answer. So always remember, need to be very, very clear about. Okay. Now I take up this question. It's a dictionary based question. Okay. Now, see in this question, there's this dictionary D, S01, S02 being the key, okay, and 95 and 96 are the values. What is this line doing? When I write for I in D, D is the dictionary. When I traverse a dictionary using for, I at every iteration gets what? Key of the dictionary. So at every iteration, for first iteration, I is S01, for the second iteration, I is S02. And what am I printing? I'm printing as simple as, it could be value of I. Okay. So first iteration, I is printed and that is S01. But it's being not the second iteration again, there's going to be a print, but I don't want it to be printed as like this. I want it to be printed as S01 hash S02. Getting it? And that's how I use end here. Right? Simple question. Just you need to understand from this question that when you traverse a dictionary, okay, using for, here I is what? I is the key of the dictionary. And this is just a revisit of using end. Now, let's take up this question. Again, I've got a list, okay, and this is an empty list. I'm traversing this list. And what does this line mean? If we are talking of this list only, right? Now, if century minus 1 in A, E, I, O, U. Century minus 1 means what? It means century is this list, okay? And century minus 1. Century minus 1 is the last, okay? Here. So what is happening in the first iteration? Century takes this value. This is the entire list, okay? And century is the first element of the list. And I'm seeing that minus 1 index means what? The last element. What am I checking here? That if the last element is in A, E, I, O, U, means if it's a vowel, what am I going to do? I'm going to append that particular, okay? I'm going to append that particular item's first element, okay, into this output. So what is my first? I'm checking the last element of this Kaziranga. And if it is in AIU, its first element is being appended to output. So if you see the entire thing, okay, which all element of wildlife sanctuary, okay, end up with a vowel, this one, and just these two. And what is going to be appended? First, 0th index of this and 0th index of this. So what is going to be the output? The output is going to be Because see, why in upper? Because see, I've converted it now. Century of zeroth index is upper converted to uppercase, and that's why I get this. Now I move on to the next question. Okay. Now just look here. Again, this is a dictionary. Okay. And this is a string. Like already said, I is what? I is key of the dictionary, key elements of the dictionary. Every iteration, key. First iteration, this. Second iteration, this. Third iteration, this. This is how it's going to move. And what am I doing? If I is the key, okay, then what is di? Di is the value of key I. Okay, so what am I doing here? For I is what? India, IND. And IND, what is the value? Del. So what am I doing? Into str1, I'm concatenating del and at the rate. So first what goes into str1? Del and at the rate. Okay. And then what am I doing? In str2, what am I putting? I'm just simply doing what? Whatever is there in str1. Okay. I'm putting it into. So it's basically slicing again. I have what? I have in str1, I have del and at the rate. Okay. Now what goes into str2? str2 has, yeah. So it goes from 0 till end. Okay. So it is del at the rate. Now next is, and see one more thing here, this str is simply doing what? Is converting it into a string so that it can be concatenated, because probably it could be a number also or something of that sort. So now what am I going to get in the output? Output's going to be del at the rate col at the rate ve. Okay? Vei. So there's no other concept in this. It's just about this. Okay. Now, next question is, here. Okay. So exception handling. See again a brief revision. Okay, on exception handling. So what are the main blocks of exception handling? First of all, what is exception handling, or even before that, what is an exception? So exception is a runtime error. Okay, first of all, to understand, exception is a runtime error. Okay, any error that occurs when you're executing your code, when the code is being executed. Okay, that's runtime error. In Python, you would see that mostly all the errors, name error, type error, key error, you just name the error, and all of them occur at runtime. Okay, and all of these errors are handled by Python already. What do you mean by handling of error or a problem or an exception? Handling means what? An error is encountered and that error is taken care. Now, what do you mean by taken care? See, what happens is when a runtime error is encountered, anytime the code is going to be, I mean, the code would just, terminate. The code is not going to be executed. Fine, it's going to be terminated. But before the code is being terminated, at least you get an appropriate message that what problem has occurred because of which the code has terminated. So that at least when you're rerunning it, you don't encounter the same issue or problem. So that's what exception handling is. As much as you handle your code, but the code has to be corrected and re-executed. The code cannot execute further till the correction is made. Okay, so handling is like just giving a message. So if you just see in Python also, whenever an error is encountered, you just see there's a traceback. What is this traceback? Traceback is a message given to by Python to you that this error has occurred because of this reason in this line. So then what you do is accordingly you make corrections in your code and you rerun your code. Okay. So how do we handle exceptions? Okay. And see, you already have the list of types of exceptions: zero division error, type error, name error, key error, index error, and end of file error, input output error. Okay, so list of errors that you already have. Yeah. Now your code. Okay, so you're saying these three things: try, accept, and finally. What are these try, accept, and finally? Yeah. So these are three blocks. Okay, and this one else block as well. Fine. Here we have three, but there's one else block as well. Now try the code where you supposedly expect, an exception or runtime error to occur. It could be one line, it could be 10 lines, it could be 100 lines. You have to put it inside the try block. Means this code is under trial. Okay. And if any exception occurs in this code, it's going to be traced back. Now, except. This is the block where we handle the exception. Okay, it's up to me how I want to handle the exception. Here what I say is, if an exception occurs in this code, I say print error has occurred. Okay, and I ended with a hash. Now you already know what end equals to hash means. Okay, so this, if there's an error encountered, this part is going to be executed. And then you're saying this finally. Finally means what? Exception has occurred or not occurred, except has been executed or not executed, the finally block is going to be executed. Okay, it is going to be executed, and then you get the result. Now, if I just in particular look at this code, okay, if I just look at this code, what I see is, yeah, so n is what? It's a string. Okay, you see, even though it's a 5, but it's initialized with a string 5. So what am I doing here? I'm concatenating word with n. If this would have been 5, then this would have given an error, type error, because you cannot concatenate a number with a string. But here it's a string. Okay, see, this is how they may confuse you in the question. Okay, and if you just look at this question superficially, you might think ye 5 hai, or something of that sort. No, always be very, very observant of what's given in the question, right? So now it's clear, correct. No problem with this. So this is not at all going to be encountered. I'll never enter this block because exception has not occurred. So what is going to be printed here? Word 5 hash. Okay. Word 5 hash till here. And finally has to be printed irrespective of anything. So my output has to be word 5 hash over and none of others. Okay. Now I move on to the next question. Just look at this. What am I doing here? I'm trying to divide a number with 0. Straight away, 0 division exception. Okay. So see what happens here. Now this question you see, there's this one except block, there's this second except block. See, except exception. What is this? Except exception is except block is always what? It's a general. It's just a general. It's just a general exception, right? So what will happen? First, what is going to happen? Whatever's in this is going to be executed. It will never come till here because the generic except block is above the specific. If it would have been here, then what would be executed? Division by zero error. But in this case, because it is followed by this, so it's like you fall sick, okay? You're not well, and you just find a hospital, a general hospital. Okay, you're not able to tolerate, you're in a lot of pain, you're not able to understand. So would you wait for a specialized hospital to go? No. You found the very first hospital when you're in pain and problem, you move to that hospital. That's what is happening here, though a problem which is specific to zero division. Okay, but because I've already encountered a generic except block, I would enter that block, execute it, and I'll not go here further. Okay, so what the output's going to be? Some other error. Okay, now let's take up this question. Now, yeah, if you see this question, now these questions, now we start off with function-based questions. And in function-based questions, see, we are passing values here. See, we are passing value. Okay, and accordingly, I'm working on this value, and then I get the result. Few things that you need to understand when you are working with function output questions. First of all, what type is being passed here? Okay, then, okay, after that, what all is within the function and what is beyond the function? Okay, so if I number these statements, first statement is this, second is this, third is this, fourth is this, and then, sorry, wait, no, third is this, then fourth is this, fifth is this, and sixth is this. Why? On third statement, I call change. When I call change, I move on to change and the body of change and then execute it. After execution, then I move on to the next statement. Yeah. So now look at this question. I'll tell you how to execute it. So first, this is just a definition, nothing to be done here. So eventually my first statement is this, 15 is being assigned to n. Okay. Now I call change with n. N is what? 15. So here what goes into n? 15 goes into n. Okay. So what becomes n here? Here n becomes 25. And I print n. N is what? I print 25 and dollar dollar, right? Now, again, I'm printing n here. See what I told you now, that you need to keep a note of type which is being passed. Now I'll tell you why. See, n is printed here as well as here. What happens? N is an integer. Integer is immutable type. Float is immutable type. String is immutable type. List is mutable type. Dictionary is mutable type. Tuple is immutable type. Now, the rule of mutability, immutability is what? If you are passing an integer, any changes made within this function will not reflect back outside the function. So the n value becomes 25 here, and it's becoming 25 within the function. Okay, it's not going to be reflected outside the function. So now when I print here n, what is going to be printed? 15. So which is going to be the correct output? Which is going to be the correct output? This one. So remember this mutability rule. Any data type which is passed, okay, to a function while calling it, if it's a immutable type, any changes made inside the function are not going to reflect back outside the function. So this is to be followed in all the output questions. Okay, you cannot just miss it out. Okay, now I take up this. Okay, now this one is what? It's a global keyword question. Again, very important. You get this question in your exams. Okay, you definitely get one question on this. Now, if I just look at this question again, I just number it, right? This is first statement, second statement, third statement. fourth statement. Then I come here, 5, 6, 7, and this is eighth statement. See, this is actually what? This is flow of execution that happens, right? The interpreter first comes across I equals to 5, and then it prints what? I. And what is going to be printed here? As simple as what? 5 at the rate, at the rate. And then I come on this definition, nothing to be done here. The definition is called here. I move on to here. Global I. What does this global I mean? It means that in this function, okay, anywhere when you use I, you're using global I. And what is the value of global I outside? It was 5. So now this is also what? 5. And now this becomes what? This becomes I 5 plus 7. So here I becomes 12, right? And when I print here, what is being printed? 12 hash hash. Okay. So because it's end, so remember this 12 hash hash comes here only. So that becomes the output. Okay. And finally I. I is what? 12 again because it's global. देखो यहाँ भी था, but here it's an integer. But what happens? It's global. So any changes made to I inside the function reflects outside also because now I is global I. So here it's 12. So finally, what is being printed? This output is this one. Okay. So I again just revisit this. See, whenever there's a global keyword to a variable inside a function, now that becomes the global variable. And when I say a variable is global means any changes made to the variable inside the function reflects back anywhere you use it inside in the program. So that's why this I, which was global here. Now here also, when I work on I work on this global I only, which makes 5, 12. And even outside when I'm using this, it's 12 only because I have incremented global I by 7. Okay. So I take up another example of this thing. Yeah, again, I just first number it, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. You understand why I've numbered it like this? First statement, second statement is function definition, third statement is function definition, fourth is, I don't go inside, okay, the functions. I go inside the functions only when I call them. So next after 3 is 4. In 4, what am I doing? I'm calling, okay, this function. So I go to where? I go to 5, 6, 7. After 5, 6, 7, again, I'm coming to 4 only. I'm coming to 4. Why? Because returning also is happening here. So I come to 4 and then again twice 4, right? And then I move on to 8. I call function 2 and after then it becomes 9, 10, 11. After 11, again, I come on 12. It's being printed. Now we see how it works. G is 0. Okay. Here what am I doing? I'm calling fung1 with 2, 3. So x में 2 जा रहा है. Here it's 3 and here I make this G global, okay? The G here is now global. And I do what? G equals to x plus y. So value of G becomes what? 5. So it becomes 5 everywhere, huh? Wherever it's being used. And I return G. So what comes into K? 5 comes into K, right? 5 will come into K. Okay. Now, what next? Next, I am calling fun2 with 5 and 7. So here comes 5, here comes 7. Okay. Global G. Now G equals to what? M minus N. M is what? 5 and this is 7. So here G becomes minus 2. Okay. And now I return G and I print G. So what is going to be printed here? Minus 2. I hope it's very, very clear to you all. Okay. So now the next question. Again, see, because you definitely get a question on global keyword, right? So we are practicing many questions of global keyword now. Okay. Again, numbering is a good practice which helps you in understanding the flow of execution, right? So if I number this 1, 2, then I come where? Here, 3, then here, 4. I call update 5. So here it is 6, 7, okay, 8, and if this, then this, if this, then this, okay, depends which one's going to be executed. Okay, and then I move here to 9. Now let's see. Value of A is 15 here. As of now, it's 15. Okay, here it becomes what? See, it's global, huh? And here also I'm working globally only. So it A becomes what here? It becomes 20. Okay, and I print what? 20 and at the rate a dollar. Sorry, it's $20. Okay, then I call update with 5. So X takes 5. And here this A is global, whatever I do with A. Now, what is the value of A? Value of A has become 20. Okay. Value of A has become 20. Here it becomes what? 22 now. A 22. And if X, value of X is what? 5. Okay. So if X is divisible by 2, is it divisible by 2? No. So A modulus X. A modulus X means what? What is the value of A? 22. Not modulus, sorry, floor division. Floor division 5. What do we get? 4. So value of A becomes what here? Floor 4. Okay. Now value of A is floor 4. And remember A is global. And after that I print A. My print was still here and this 4 gets printed here. You're getting this? What have I done here? A is 15. Then A becomes what? 20 here. Okay, it becomes 20 here. I print 20 at the rate. Half of the thing is printed here. Then I call update with 5. X becomes 5. But A is global. Okay, so globally I have been continuing with A with value 20. It's become 20. So here I take up the same A. It becomes 22 here. And 22 and X is not divisible by 2. So I move here and 22 modulus X becomes 4. That is being printed here. So my output is 20 at the rate $4. Let's take up this question. Okay. Again, my numbering starts from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 9. Just a minute. This is 10, this is 11. Okay. Now, so this is a dictionary. Now see, in this question, this is a dictionary, 2 empty lists. I'm calling change with dictionary D. Now remember, dictionaries are mutable. So any changes that I'm going to make, though I'm not making any change in dictionary in this function, but even if I would have done, any change made here to the value of the dictionary would have reflected outside the dictionary, right? But here I'm doing what? I have list and I'm changing lift, the list. Okay. Now let's take up the question. Now I'm calling change with D. So I'm calling change with this dictionary. For KV in X dot items. What does X dot items? Items gives me what? X for this X dictionary, list of tuples. And each tuple has what? Each key value pair. So the first iteration has first key value pair 1 colon 1, second has 2 colon 2, third has 3. So K has key and V has its subsequent value, right? What am I doing now? L dot append key. So L, all the keys are being appended. L2, all the values are being appended. This is all the functions doing, right? And then what am I going to do? I'm going to print L1. I'm going to, it's very simple. So when it's L1, print all the keys are going to be printed and the keys are 1, 2, 3. And here all the values are going to be printed. The values are 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then finally the dictionary. I have not made any change in the dictionary. If any change was made in the dictionary inside the function, the changed dictionary would have been reflected here because dictionaries are mutable. Okay, now the same question. Okay, let's take up this. Is a simple question, but let's take up numbering 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. A is 10. Okay, global A is 10. And I call convert with 30. Now see, B equals to 20 means what? Means B is a default parameter. Means what? If I say I would have, I add a statement here. Convert empty. Means what? Here I am calling convert with 30. So the value of B would not be 20 but 30. B is the default, 20 is the default value for B. Say I call convert without a value, then B would have been 20 here. Okay. So here it's 30. 30 goes in place of B, not 20 now. A is 30. Okay. So A 30. Now remember, this is, see now you know what? I mean, the best part of this question is, I'll just tell you one thing. This question encompasses concept of default parameters. Okay, number one, concept of local variables, how they work. Now see, this A is global A. This A is local A. Inside this function, only this A is visible. It has nothing to do with the A outside the function until unless I had written global here, which I have not done. Okay. So now A equals to 30, C equals to A plus B. So what is going to be the value of C? C would be, B is also 30 as per this. So C would become 60 and I would print AC. So what is going to be printed? A is 30 and 60. Correct? Yes. And print A. What is value of A? Now remember, this A is going to be the global A outside the function. Okay, and not the one which is defined inside the function. So 30, 60, and 10. Got it? So this would be the output to this question. Now let's take up this question. Okay. Yeah. Just see this question very carefully. Again, I number this question. 2, 3. 2. I call it here. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I come here, 8. And again, the function is being called, goes back. So this is how the iteration happens, or the execution happens, right? I call total with 4. So here again, it's a default, num is default, but I'm calling total with 4. So instead of 10, now the value 4 is going to be used. And sum is initialized to 0. For C in range 1, comma n, num plus 1. What is num? Num is 4. So range goes from 1 till 3. Range goes from 1 till 3, 1 till 4, sorry, because it becomes 5. Until, obviously, see, it is 1 to 5. 4 plus 1, 5. So range would go from 1 to 4. Okay, so the value of C would go from basically 1 to 4. Now, if C2, C modulus 2 is not equal, so for C equals to 1, if we just see how the iteration happens, we just go through, see for both the iterations, right? I take the first one for the first call, right? So num becomes what? 4, okay? And C goes from 1 to 4, okay? Now, after this, what is going to happen? If C modulus 2 is not equals to 0, yes, because when C is 1, it is not equals to 0. So just continue means nothing is going to happen. I'll move on to the next iteration. Now C becomes 2. Now when C becomes 2, sum, this condition goes false. So my sum becomes 2. Okay. So here sum plus equals to 2. Okay. Now in next iteration 3, nothing would happen. Again in 4, what would happen? Again 4 may, it would be plus 4. Okay. So this is how it's going to work. And I return sum and print total 4. So what is going to be returned? What is the sum? 6. Okay. So 6 at the rate is being printed for the first print. $6, sorry. If I now see this example here now, total is not called with any value here. So it takes 10. The same thing repeats again. Num becomes 10. Okay. Now C goes from 1 to 10. Okay. Now sum is being added what all? It's added 2, then it's added 4, then 6, then 8, then 10. So the value becomes, some value becomes 30 for this call. And I simply print it. So it becomes 30 at the rate. You're getting this question? Okay. So here you understand the concept of default parameters and how, okay, once you're calling it with changed value or with a value, and once you're calling without value, so the default value is being taken into account. Okay. This one's, I mean, we have done this type of a question, so let's move on. Okay. Let's take up this question. Yeah. So again, this is a list. Okay. Empty dictionary. I'm traversing my list. Okay. So S in first iteration is what? Himalaya. And if length of Himalaya modulus 4 is equals to 0, I mean, if its length is divisible by 0, so what do I put in DS? Okay. I mean, DS is what? S is what? Himalaya. So the key would be Himalaya, and for that, I would just put length of Himalaya. Okay, this is how it's going to work. And so this is how I complete my dictionary. And then I traverse my dictionary. I write for K in D. Now tell me which all, I mean, have. So straight away you have to see which all have even, okay, number of elements. So it's Himalaya and Alps. Okay, so you get a dictionary which has value, which has items Himalaya having value 8 and Alps having value 4. And when you traverse that dictionary, you get what? You just get K, that is Himalaya. I mean, your output is Himalaya, okay, hash 8 and Alps hash. This is going to be the output of this question. Simply I'm traversing the list. Okay, the first element of the list, I'm checking if it's list, if the element length is divisible by 4. If it is so, then the value of the list becomes the key and its length becomes the value. And only 2 such elements of the list satisfy this condition. And here I'm traversing the dictionary and displaying the key value pairs with a separator. That's what. Let's take up this question. Yeah. Now in this question, again, I have got 2 default parameters in this function, right? 2 default parameters. Remember, we are working with integers and integers are immutables. Okay. Now, one integer, second integer, I call this with xy. So I call with 100 and 200. Right? So b becomes what? B becomes b plus a, 300. A becomes what? A becomes b minus a. A is 200, 100. Okay. So when I print this, what is that I print? I print 300 hash 100. And I return b. So I return 300. Okay. So here I have 300 in x. And I print x, which is 300 because it's been, overwritten. X is overwritten here. So what do I get? I get 300 and at the rate and value of y is 200. Again, I call this with y and y is what 200. Now in the second call, okay, b would remain 20 and a would be, what am I passing? Y 200, right? So a would become 200 and accordingly, I'll get the value for this one. So here, if I see for this call, this is, wait, I'll tell you. But and now I'm doing this for the second call. Okay. Now for the second call, I'm passing value for y. I'm passing y. So this y goes into, y is what? 200. 200 goes into this b. Okay. And this a would take 10 only. Now b equals to b plus a means b becomes what? 210. Okay. And a becomes what? 210 minus a means 200. And it's going to be printed. What's going to be printed? 210 hash a is 200. And I return b. What is b? b is 210. So 210 is returned here. And when I print x is taken its original value, which is 300, it's become 300. It takes 300 at the rate y is being returned as y is return b 210. Okay. So here you just need to understand which value is being passed and where does it go. And here this has to be remembered. X has been overwritten, not to use this original value there. If the change was just here, it would have not reflected back here, but it's being returned. Okay. And it's going into this X, so it's updating X here. Here it's updating Y. So the updated value of Y is going to be used in this print. Updated value of X is going to be used in this print. Okay. Now this question. Now this is an example of nested list. Okay. So L is the list. First element, 0th index. Second element, -1th index. Just print it, concatenate it. So L1. L1 means incredible, this value. 0 means I. So it would be what? I. And I concatenate it with L2. Bharat. Okay. -1. T. With T. So output's going to be IT. Okay. Now let's take this question. Okay, split again. What am I splitting it on? I. So I'll get a list which is going to split this list wherever I have an I. So I split it here, I again split it here, I split it here, I split it here, I split it here. Okay. So what is going to be the correct output of this? Where I have water SK, comma, space, comma, NG, then STHR, then comma, LL, then comma, NG. Okay. Now I take up this output question which has this SQP 25. It is S. First of all, whatever the string is, write it somewhere. SQP 25. Okay. Now this is an empty string. What am I doing in this line? I'm traversing the entire string. This is the string. Okay. Yeah. Now underline the conditions. First condition is this. Based on this condition, this all have to be done. Next condition is this. Based on this condition, this has to be done, else this has to be done. And this is used to move your traversal, okay, on the string because it's starting from 0, it'll go till less than len -1. Means it starts from here, it goes till here, end. Now, the first condition is if it is between 0 and 9, my first is, so I'm at 0th index. Okay. So see this question does what? It makes you traverse the entire string. You go character by character and just see what conditions imply and accordingly make changes, right? So we are doing what in this? This is my string S1, okay? And accordingly, I'll make concatenations to S2. Now the first condition says if it is between 0, 9, it's not between 0, 9. If it's between AZ, yes, it is between AZ. So what you have to do is concatenate S2 with S1 I plus 1. Abhi to I is on 0 and I plus 1 is Q. So what I do is I replace S with Q. I mean, not replace S actually, I put Q in S2 because I plus 1. I plus 1 is what? 0 plus 1 index value is Q. So that is concatenated. Okay. Now I plus 1, I move on to the next element Q. It again falls in this category, okay, of between lying between A to Z. So what comes in place of Q? P, okay, right. Next is P, again falls into this category, so hyphen comes here, okay. Now hyphen goes into which category? Hyphen goes into this category. It's neither between 0 to 9 nor A to Z, so simply I need to do what? I need to concatenate this. So this comes in this. Now, next is 2. Next is 2. So this condition is true. 2 lies between 0 and 9. So what I do is I convert it into integer. I reduce it by 1. Okay. And I again convert it to string and concatenate. So in place of 2, I get what? String 1. Okay. Next is 5. Same thing implies with 5 and I get a 4 here. So this becomes my output. Now this is the best way of doing this question step by step. You'll never go wrong. Write the main string here, okay, S1 and S2 here, and whatever changes, just keep writing below your original string. You'll never go wrong. You traverse the entire string, you make the changes, and you're done. Okay, now I take up this question again. What is my original string? I just write the original string. It is Gen X. Gen X. Okay, so this is my Gen X, and my new str is here. I'll see what to do. I traverse it. If, yeah, count is 0 and I am traversing my string. So initially count is 0. So count is not equals to 0 is not true. This is true. So what am I simply going to do? New str, I mean, I'm concatenating this by just converting it to lower. Okay. And I make count 1. Now, if again I move back, I move on to the next character of my string. And now my count has become what? 1. Now this becomes true. Now this becomes true means what? I will concatenate it with str count minus 1. Count minus 1 means what? We'll go back to G. Yeah, it's going to go back to G. So yeah. Simply I'm going to convert to count minus 1. So 1, abhi to count is 1. I'm simply converting this to string. Now my count was 1 in the second iteration. It becomes 0. So simply what comes here? 0. Okay, this is a 0. Now I move on to this. And my C has become what? First iteration, C was 0. Second iteration, C is 1. A third iteration, C is 2. For C equals to 2 now, again, what is going to happen? When it is C equals to 2, nothing. Again, this condition is true for C equals to 0 because it's not, it's divisible. And this is to be converted to lower, it's already lower. Okay. And then we have Gen X, X. Now I come on to this. Okay. Now C has become what? 3. Now C has become 3. And so what? This is again true. So now the count. Again, we move on to the count from 3. It becomes 2. So I get this much. I'm getting this GON2. I've got this till yet. Now I move out of the loop because the entire string is traversed. Now what am I doing? New str equals to new str plus my str 0 to start stop is given here. So now what next? What am I going to do? My str value is gen x. Okay. And new star is again concatenated with my str. 0 to 2 means what? 0, 1. 0 means 0, 1 means what? This is 0, this is 1. So simply my output, this is going to be concatenated with JE. So my output becomes GON2 GE. You're getting it how it worked? You're getting this line. I've got my new str from my this thing. Yeah. And simply I am using my MySTR, traversing it first two elements, and I'm just concatenating and I get it. Yeah, this is the output. This question again, the same because you definitely get these types of questions in your exam. It's important to go through them, right? Again, same method, same method. I'll write the string. Okay. I'll underline this is doing what? This is traversing the loop. I underline the condition. First condition says between A and M. Second condition says between capital O and small z. Okay, all the alphabets. Then if upper, simple, if upper. Okay, else if none of these, then this condition. So we just go in the same way. Okay, if it is between this, so simply I'm going to convert it into upper and replace it. Okay, if it is between O and Z, I just take up the previous value and put it there. And if it's upper, I make it lower, else I just concatenate with the at the rate. Okay, just try it. If you get out, you can check with me. Just look at this question. Yeah. So here I have this string. I split it. On splitting, what do I get? I get three strings. One is race car, the other one is car, and the other one is radar. Okay. And I traverse the list. And what I do is I convert each of them into upper. And what I do is this does what? Reverse. Reverse of race car is compared with race car. Okay, if what does this mean? If they are palindromes, if they are palindromes, you just pick them. Okay, and each character for I next. Okay, which first of all just check which all of them are palindromes. What are palindromes? Palindromes are the ones which are the same, okay, when you reverse them or either ways. Okay. So, except for, I mean, car is not a palindrome, right? So, and these two are. So, for the first element, I convert it into upper and I write what? For I next, I'll write R. It's what? Asterisk A, asterisk C, asterisk E. I'll write till car. This becomes, and for the one, next element is what this. So this becomes C hash A hash R. Okay. And again, this is followed by radar, which is again a palindrome. So next, which is going to be printed is R at the rate A at the rate D. Sorry, this is not at the rate asterisk A asterisk A asterisk R. So you'll be getting three outputs. Okay. Same type of question. Traverse the string. If it is lower, I'll just convert it to upper. If it's a upper, say I'll write it. Okay, I write it this LEARNING learning CS. And what am I going to do? This is text, and the other one is going to be end text, which I'm going to make. So the first condition is if it's lowercase, okay. If it's a number or alphabet, else. Okay. So just traverse it one by one. So the first element is L. Okay. It's not lower. Okay, not lower. Then it is a number alphabet, yes. So what I do is, so initially now I is what? I is 0 in the first iteration. And I say if it is L num means it's a number or an alphabet. Okay. Now see, even a lower one is a number in an alphabet. But if this is encountered first for a lower one, so this would execute. But in this case, it's not lower, so that's why I come here. And now I become 0. So what is going to be added to this thing? New end text S. Because I minus 1, I minus 1 means S. Okay, minus 1 index is this. This. Now for small is lower. So I simply convert it to upper. This also is lower, converted to upper, lower, converted to upper, this. Now these two are upper. So the CS would become what? G and C. Why G and C? What do we have? C, what index do we have for C? Just reduce it by 1. Okay, and that becomes G, and that comes here. And likewise for S, reduce 1, and C, capital C comes here. This is how it works. So these are all about the output questions, and now you all need to just again go through all of these and let me know if there's any doubt. I'll again take up an output class if needed by you all. Output question classes basically because they form a major section of your question paper. Okay. Now after this, I'll take up another set of questions and how to solve them for your exam. And yeah, see you all again. Thank you.